The Post-Dispatch covered some of my recent research, and some new stuff that I point out is that the poorer teachers in our state tend to fund the pensions of the richer teachers in our state.
Okay,
and especially
explain that.
So the system isn't based on how much teachers put in. It's only based on this formula, which counts your 3 highest years' salary. All right. So if you teach for 25 years and then become a principal, and then you become a superintendent and make, say, $200,000, which is not uncommon in the St. Louis area,
right,
you didn't put enough money into the system to cover your benefits. Or you didn't contribute enough over the course of your career to get 75% of that $200,000, $150,000 every year for the rest of your life. You didn't put enough in. That money has to come from somewhere. And where does it come from? Well, it comes from partially from the teachers in our rural school districts that teach for 30 years. Little Miss Johnson, who just stayed in the classroom,
right,
didn't get many raises. She put more into the system than what she gets out. And so part of her contributions end up helping fund that superintendent or the teachers in our higher paying school districts.
Aha. So what's the solution?
Well, part of the solution is really to try to tie your benefits to your contributions. What I suggest in my research, it's forthcoming in the Journal of Education Finances. One thing we could do is just use more years of service. So instead of using 3 years of service, use 5 or 10, or do something like Social Security, which uses a 35-year average. So,
right.
So instead of just basing it on this really short period of time when salaries are the most inequitable among our teachers.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
Instead of using that short time frame, actually use the full career of a teacher or a principal to determine how much they should get in benefits. And I want to say, teachers love the pension system. You might get some calls today from people saying, don't touch the pension system. We really like it. Well, you should like it if you're able to get way more out of a system than you actually put in. The problem is there are about 2/3 of our teachers who don't get more out. There are about 2/3 of the people in the system who are worse off in this system than they would be in a system where the benefits are tied to their contributions.
So you're saying the ones who have gone on to be bigger and better salaries,
right,
are taking more out because they're a superintendent for 5 years, they were a teacher for 30 years, and so they were trolling away, putting the small amount in, and their big paychecks at the end then skew it so they get the other benefit at the end.
That's right. We had the example here in St. Louis a few years ago of the superintendent who moved districts, worked 1 additional year, and increased his pension benefits by $20,000 every year for the rest of his life.
Right.
He didn't put enough money in 1 year to cover $20,000 for the rest of his life. And that money has to come from somewhere. And it comes from, just as I said, other employees who leave money in the system who don't get enough out. People like me who left early before I vested and I left half my contributions in the system. Or it comes from future generations,
right,
the next generation of people who help fund our benefits. When we can't fully fund ourselves, the money has to come from somewhere, or what we see happen is growing unfunded liabilities, and we'll wind up in a situation like
right,
Illinois.
The teacher's pension is pretty well funded here in Missouri, is it not?
Relatively speaking, it's pretty well funded. It's about 80% if you use the pension system's calculations. If you use more conservative estimates, as Andrew Biggs does for a Show Me Institute paper, we see that we have about $31 billion in unfunded liabilities.
Have you heard anything from the teachers union about your findings?
So the funny thing is, what I show is that a good portion of our teachers are getting hosed. Right?
And the teachers unions are mad at you.
And they're mad at me. First, they're saying they want to put their head in the sand and say, leave it alone, it's a good system. And it's
right,
true. It is a good system for those who benefit.
Right.
It's good for the people who stay 30 years, and especially for people who get large end-of-career raises by switching into administration. For
right,
those people, this is a great system.
Right.
But it's not great for everyone.
Well, you can see how they're petrified over somebody says change the pension funds, and all of a sudden they're freaking out like, oh my goodness.
But there's a lot of fear out there. There's fear among the retirees saying, don't take away my benefits, and that's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
There's fear from other people saying, oh, if you do any changes, the legislature is going to steal this and use it as a piggy bank for other projects.
Right.
We don't want that either.
Right.
But what we need to do is start looking forward and say, how can we create a system that's really financially sustainable and that doesn't take from our poorest to give to our richest individuals in this system.
James Scholes is always welcome here. Where can people find out more about this stuff?
There's more about this on showmeinstitute.org and the latest research you can find on Post-Dispatch's website, Dave Nicholas's column.
Yeah. All right. The website one more time. I'm sorry.
Showmeinstitute.org.
Showmeinstitute.org. That's James Scholes and a PhD. You're a fellow at the Show Me Institute.
That is right.
But you're a researcher at UMSL?
I'm a professor at UMSL.
Professor at UMSL. How many classes do you teach?
Usually 3 a semester. I've got a heavy load this semester, though.
And what are you teaching?
It's education policy. I work with administrators. I teach school finance and education research issues.
How about
Oh,
that?
I like it. He says, just those little things.
Just those little
Education
things.
research
All
issue.
right, James Scholes. You have office. You have office hours.
I do. I'm not going to put them out on air, but I do have them. Yeah.
All right, good. James, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
811 Big 550.